Hello. Today I am joined by Pradip. He's a product manager and he will tell us all about his journey from being a developer into becoming a product manager. I'm sure you have a lot of stories. I am sure you have a lot of experience and you have a very interesting journey to share with us.
Thank you, Fabio. Thank you for having me.
It's very nice to have you here. So, how was your journey into, um, first of all, becoming a product, a product manager, first of all, becoming a developer, and then that transition from becoming a developer to becoming a product manager?
Sure. At 16, as you know, I grew up in the UK. So at 16, you either have a choice to either go do A levels, B Tech, or leave school. I ended up leaving school at 16, and I got an apprenticeship. In the US terms, it was an internship where I left school at 16. I was employed by a company back in England, and for the first year, they paid me to go to school. I ended up taking a BTEC in electrical electronic engineering, and for the second year, I actually went in and worked. So my I guess before I started this apprenticeship, they asked me what line of work I wanted to get into. So I figured electrical electronic engineering sounded fun. It was an aviation simulation company. So what we did is we bought the cockpits from Airbus and Boeing, and we installed our own visuals at the front, put it up on hydraulics, and it became a big simulator where pilots trained on before they were allowed to fly the real aircrafts and for continuing education. So before I got this apprenticeship, I was asked, do I want to do software engineering? Do I want to do electrical, electronic engineering or mechanical engineering? So at the time, I didn't really know what software engineering meant, and I didn't really know what mechanical engineering meant. But electrical, electronic engineering was something that I was interested in because I like taking things apart, putting it back together. I like soldering things. So at that time, I selected electrical, electronic engineering. During the first year, when I was sent to school for the full time, we took mechanical engineering classes, electrical, electronic engineering classes, plus software engineering classes. And for some reason, I kept being attracted to the software engineering classes. And any electives that I was able to take, I wanted to take them in software engineering. I started making friends with the software engineers and started understanding what languages they use, what books they read, what software engineering was about. And in addition to doing my regular class, I started taking, at home practicing coding small things. I'm going to date myself here, but I started off in C++, Visual Basic, and HTML. So in the evenings, I used to hang out with software engineers and we used to code things and just learn together. And when I started working in the second year, I was working as an electrical electronic engineer where my role is basically to make sure that the wiring is correct in the simulators. So we would have the manufacturing team coming and build the simulator. My job was to make sure that the wiring is as per specification. So I really loved it. It was hands-on. You're walking around, talking to different people from different departments, and once I started getting my feet into the company, I somehow was just attracted to talk to the software engineers. Lunchtime, breaks, anytime a software engineer comes by, I'm always asking questions. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? What is the purpose of this? How have you done this? And sometimes they would let me sit and code over their shoulders. Sometimes I'd create something small and things like that. But the important lesson for me at that time was just getting out there and talking to people. And with cold DMs, cold emails, there's a lot of rejection. And it was the same for me when I was working in this as a second year employee. There were some engineers who really couldn't be bothered to talk to me. Some engineers who didn't really. They're like, you're stick to your job, do what you do best. And some of them gave me attention, some of them didn't. So that was a good skill for me to learn in rejection at the time, because not everybody was open to share their experience or train me in a field that I wasn't getting paid to work in, or that wasn't even my job.
I
So
think
that was a first rejection training. Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I just said I think sometimes you see that in every job that you do, any profession, you always have someone that is more than happy to share with others what they know,
Yeah.
whilst you have other people that are very protective of their craft and they just don't want to teach others because they're
Yes.
afraid that you are going to replace them,
Yep.
which is a shame because a lot of times you show your stripes by teaching other people and to share your experience, because no matter what you've been through, you won't really pass all the knowledge that you've been through to someone else by showing how to do things. So you said that you enjoy taking things apart but also coding. Is it because you have the manual skills of just wanting to see how things work out, and then you went to code because it feels like a big puzzle as well? Or
Exactly. I mean, I liked fixing things. At 16, I built my own computer. It was just a case of being hands-on, seeing how things work together, and then when you built that computer or whatever you've built, and you press that power button and it powers up, and you're like, wow, I just built that. So for me, it was just seeing that process to build things, but the end result that you're solving something, you're creating value. I built my computer, and it created so much value for me, because for a 16-year-old, I was able to download games, play, write notes, and all of a sudden I'm writing all my college notes, school notes on the computer, and I had a huge repository of notes from, when I was 16 to 18, everything was digital, and I loved it. So for me, yeah, absolutely. I love creating and playing with things and taking things apart and seeing how it works.
so the first thing that you've taken apart, how many pieces were left over?
Yeah. So I my one of the earliest things that I took apart was my video VCR player, and I fixed it, but there were like three pieces that were left, from the time, and I'm like, I don't know where they go. And the video player was playing, everything was fine, but there was like three pieces left over at the end.
It's very odd. It's always every time that you touch something that was assembled, even if you record everything, it always seems that you find things that shouldn't be there. So you shouldn't
Yes.
be left out. Say, I followed all the instructions. Why the hell I have another screw or something like that? It's
Yep.
very odd.
It is, and I love IKEA furniture in England, right? So a lot of my furniture in my room at the time was all IKEA based. So you bring home these boxes, and then you take it apart, you put it together, and at the end you've got whatever furniture you bought, and you're always left with extra pieces. And I'm wondering, did they give me extra pieces, or did I not put something in somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. I feel exactly the same way sometimes. So you were you always working? Sorry, did you work as a developer coding as well, or that was just something that you did on the part time or on your free time?
So initially it was in my free time.
Mhm.
Like I said, at that time in the current employment, I used to hang out with a lot of software engineers and do coding in my free time. And it's something that I got good at because I enjoyed it, and that's what I spent most of my time doing. So when I left the UK, I moved over to the US, and when I left, I was figuring out what I wanted to do. So there were no simulator companies in New York City area, so I had to figure out a new career. I was at one point thinking of becoming a pilot, but then 9/11 happened, and the industry took a bit of a hit. I thought about going to law school and becoming a lawyer at one point, and I was like, do I really want to do that? Do I not? So the easiest way to make money for me at the time was to just reach out to companies and say, hey, I can help you with creating some digital tools. websites. It was just the easiest way to get my foot in the door. So initially it just started off with, hey, I can help fix computers, maybe be a help desk technician kind of thing, networking, server monitoring, things like that. But then really I started realizing that there was a need for people who wanted to implement software. At that time, relational databases were becoming a thing. Digital reporting was becoming a thing, right? And then websites, online ordering, and things like that were becoming a thing. So, for me, I asked a lot of questions, and I reached out to company owners, small and medium businesses in New York City, and I asked them, hey, do you need help with anything, building things, reporting, databases? And the first thing they used to say is, I have an idea, I need someone to build it. And I used to always push back and I say, I get you have an idea and I can build it for you, but can we talk about why you're building this? What's the value you're hoping to provide? And some people liked it. Some people were like, you know what? I have an idea. I just need someone to execute it and build it for me. Either you build it or I'll find somebody else. And I remember this one time I was working on a online ordering system for a customer, and I was working with another developer, and this other developer was saying yes to everything. The owner would say, can you do A? That developer would say yes. Can you do B? The other developer says yes. All of a sudden, the developer saying yes to everything to get the business. And I'm like, okay, I get you want to build an online ordering system, but who are your users? What are they currently doing? What are you trying to accomplish, right? How are your users currently ordering, currently? What other products are there in the market? And I kept asking all these different questions. So the owner pretty much went ahead with the developer and kept me as a assistant, if you will. And over time, we built what the owner wanted. I kept asking all these questions throughout the process. And at the end, it went live and we were having trouble with adoption and retention. So we asked some of the customers, why aren't you using this online ordering system? Why are you still calling in? Because that was the easiest way to place the order. And we don't like your system. It doesn't do this, and this. And it's too complicated. It takes longer sometimes trying to figure out things on your system than it's easier for me to pick up the phone and call you guys. And once we heard that, I'm like, that's exactly why I've been trying to tell you, don't build immediately. Let's figure out the why. Let's ask all these questions and then build it. So at that point, the owner realized that it's not just about building. It's about knowing why you're building, who you're building for, what the value that you're building, the value you're going to give. So that was a big learning experience for me. And at that time, I realized product management wasn't a thing back then. And I'm talking, maybe 2004, 2006, around that time, product management wasn't a thing. It was just me trying to figure out, okay, if we're going to build something, what's the benefit and who's going to use it? And I just started asking questions and doing effectively what product managers do today. I just did it naturally because I wanted to do it and get the product to these users as quickly, as cheaply, and using the best technology that we could with all these different constraints, as opposed to being a developer that says, hey, I can build you this and, let's sign the contract and move on. So that was a big aha moment for me, that there's not many people trying to understand the reason why behind it. And that's when I kind of shifted into more product management stuff. And then I outsourced to developers that I trusted to actually do the building and work with me. But I became more of a customer facing person as opposed to the person who builds and, as a developer. So from that perspective, that's really the story that I have, that developing was a fantastic career and I really liked it. But then I started realizing that as a developer, why build something that no one's going to use? The whole goal is to build something that people want to use, people love, people need, and it creates value for them. So I moved more into that thinking strategy kind of perspective than, hey, let me sit there and, code something for 6 weeks.
That makes a lot of sense. And we've met up on that makers community, Makerlog,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that I see all the time is other makers and other indie hackers. They say, okay, you have an idea, but have you asked people if they actually are interested on that idea? Or let's say you create a amazing product and you have so many ideas that you can implement on your product and all the things that you want to include, and then seriously, apologies,
That's
and
okay.
then and then they say, oh, okay, but where do I get started? Maybe I'll add all the things, and then you ask the customers after you spend maybe a whole year implementing that, and
Yeah.
no one wants to use that because it's good in your head, but it's not good on your for your customers because maybe they are not interested, or it's, like you said, it's too hard to use, and it's easier to just grab the phone and just call you.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need that help from someone. So I guess, and that was going to be my next question, is what is a product manager for people that don't know? So I guess you already started a little bit. So you see the needs of the customer, you start asking a lot of questions, and you try to guide a product to some place that customers will use. Am
Yeah.
I correct, or?
So there, this is a tricky question, right? As a product manager, for someone who's a product manager for, say, a Goldman Sachs or a American Express, Estee Lauder, the big corporations, the role of a product manager is slightly different. Different to someone who's working at a mid-sized firm, who may be VC backed. So there's a lot of different interpretations on the role itself. The way I look at it is a product manager's role is to figure out and discover the product that you want to build, right? Figure out what that product is. And in order to figure out what that product is, you need to learn and know who the user is, who you're going to be effectively selling it to, right?
Okay.
And then once you have some kind of strategy or some direction on what the product is going to be, you need to get the team excited about it, right? Get the team to be building it together with you. It's not just the product manager says this and it happens. The product manager, one of the, I guess, misconceptions people have about product management is the product manager has no power, right? The product manager has no ability to say, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. It's all about influencing without authority, getting everybody on board with data, with talking to people, and creating, you're synthesizing all this information. So you're sharing that information with everybody, you're communicating it out, and you want to get the team excited about that vision, get everyone on board, right? It's not your product as a product manager, it's collectively you're building it together. And then as you've built it, you give it out to people to use. It's not a waterfall method, and a lot of people, when they feel like it, you use a term built, it's a waterfall. It's not. You build something small, you give it to users to get some feedback, and you continuously iterate on it. So I feel like it's a circular motion, if you will, where you're trying to figure out what to build, you have to build it, and then you give it out to the users to test, and then you reiterate on it.
Makes sense. And I guess in a way, what you are saying is a product manager or a manager or a boss, anyone that has that sort of position, what they have to be is a leader, really, because everything that you are saying, you have to deal with different kind of people, and you have to make everybody follow the same path, even though some people might not see the point of doing something. And sometimes it can be hard if you have someone that might not be as motivated to work on that particular feature or something along those lines. But yeah, you are that bridge between the developers, the owner of the company or the CEO of the company, and also the client.
Yes and no. I mean, I've heard people say be the bridge, be the glue, and my own perspective is that to an extent, but when you talk about being the bridge and when you're the glue, it kind of like implies that without you the company can't run, without you the product can't run, and I feel like that's not true, right? Developers can build with the UI UX, the owner can give the direction and what have you. So I feel like the 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 role of a product manager is secondary. It's the role to get all the information, synthesize it, and make bets on behalf of the company,
Okay.
right? Or with the company rather, not on behalf, but with the company and getting everyone excited. So I've heard the terms we're the glue, we're the bridge, and things like that. I tend to feel like I want to empower the team to build it and be on board together, as opposed to being, the glue that keeps everyone together. Because I feel like I should be able to walk away, or if something happened to me, the team can continue executing on a vision that we've created together.
But that might be just the way how you are as a leader, because sometimes you have those leaders that they just want the power and they don't want to budge on anything. And they say
Yeah.
you have to do it as it is. And you seem to be more of a leader that you are trying to keep everybody in the loop and you are on the same level as everybody in your team. From what you
I think
say,
so. I mean, at the end of the day, what's a leader if they don't have a team, right?
yeah.
And at the end of the day, the team is doing all the work, right? The team is there grafting, creating, understanding, and doing everything. I'm there to help facilitate certain conversations. I'm there to help drive and facilitate understanding, and communicate things with the team. So at the end of the day, I think that the team is the one who gets the credit.
And I would like to know, because I don't work as a developer yet, and obviously on a big team, it's something different than, let's say, a startup where you are
Yeah.
working with maybe two other developers or three other developers. So you as a product manager, are you the one that is taking care of the developers? As in, are you the manager for the developers, or the
No, no,
developer have
no.
their own
The
manager?
the developers have their own manager.
Mhm.
I work with developers, I work with UI UX, I work with various cross-functional teams, but the managers have, I mean, sorry, the developers have their own managers. They have their own internal, processes, but it's a cross-functional team that we work together.
Okay. Like I said, uh, I might not know exactly what a product manager is. Obviously, I've heard the term, so I was wondering if it was something like that or something different.
I mean,
Say,
if you think, sorry to cut you off there. Quick
sure.
question, quick thought. Um, if you're working at a smaller startup and there's basically a founder, a co-founder, two developers, and a product guy, or sales and marketing guy, things are different in that environment. I'm talking if you went for if you work at a company, at least a Series A, Series B kind of company, at least, where they may have some kind of differentiation between departments and things like that as they start to grow.
All right, yeah, makes sense. I'm also thinking more about the startups where the teams are a bit smaller,
Yeah.
where you as a developer or you as a manager or you as the owner, you have to fit so many hats that those lines get a bit blurred a little
Yeah.
bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Second Cakes had a good question. It's as a developer, I'm wondering what is your perspective on tech debt, if any, as a product manager?
Tech debt, tech debt.
That, yes, sorry.
Yeah. It's I get it from a developer perspective. The role of the developer is to make sure that the tech, whatever you're building, works effectively and in the best possible way, and it doesn't break in like 6 months time. So I get that. I'm a big fan of getting the tech debt out, because you want to build something strong. But at the same time, you don't want to build something so strong, but it's not what the customer wants or what the user wants. So there's a balance between finding that sweet spot of what the user wants and needs versus spending so much time in the beginning to try and get the code clean as possible, to avoid that tech debt. But I'm a strong believer in that you should reduce the tech debt as much as possible, because you don't want to have something fail 6 months on down the road because you're trying to build so much and all of a sudden the code base is getting messed up.
Hmm. Do you think it also depends a lot of how fast your team needs to go? Let's say that if you have a schedule that you need to push something or release something in 3 months
Yeah.
versus a year, then maybe you can sort out some kinks where you couldn't if you have a shorter.
It does, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're building too many features and you have a timeline for things, I think timelines are good to an extent, especially if you have legal requirements that you have to meet. But at the end of the day, it's the user experience,
Mhm.
right? Are the users asking for all these features that you want to build, or is it something that as a company you're driving to maybe differentiate yourself? So I feel you have to create that balance between what the goal of the company is versus what the users need.
Okay. What, out of curiosity, what was the hardest thing that you ever worked on? Was it a feature that maybe was too difficult to implement, too complex? Was it maybe uh, you had a team that couldn't work well together? I'm not sure if you can describe some sort of things without really saying much, if you know what I
Sure.
mean.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, to me, and I'm Hitan Shah is somebody who I've had on my podcast, the Product Angle Show. He said something that, focus on building teams, then the process, and then the tools. So I'm a big believer on getting team alignment, right? And that's where if you have a strong team and everyone's comfortable in what they're doing and they know that things can go up, things can go down, that's the best team to work on. And getting that alignment is extremely, extremely difficult because as in some companies, there are hierarchies. You have to go through this VP to get this approval, or you have to go through this director to get this approval. And, getting them to get that approval before you can do something is difficult. In smaller companies, not so much because you can just walk up to people. But in the larger corporations where it's very, departmentalized, it's very hard to get people to be on the same page. And let's say you have a sales team, sales VP or whatever, and they say, hey, we can get this large deal if we can just implement these 3 features in the next 3 months. And having those conversations are very difficult because salespeople live and die by the sales they bring into the company. And you need sales to survive. But do those features that they're wanting to get into the roadmap, are they going to help the overall company objectives? Or is this just to get that one customer? So having those conversations and getting that alignment between different departments, especially sales, it's for me, that's the hardest part of being a product manager, because you have to talk to various stakeholders and get them aligned on the same page.
I understand. And many years ago, one of my first jobs, or my first job, was insurance salesman. And I know that as a salesman, the one thing you care about the most is your commission. So you
Yes.
don't care about how long it's going to take, but if you know that there is a particular thing that you can change or you can implement that will make your sell process easier, you just say, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to do it because, man, I'm going to sell this like fried chicken, I guess.
Yeah. That's
So,
the balance.
yeah. And I can definitely imagine how hard it must be to juggle all of these different um, different departments. I mean, I work for quite a big company as a flight attendant, but we have a very open environment. So you can even go to the office and you can ask questions, and there is there isn't such a rigid
Okay.
department where it says, yeah, you're not allowed here because you are just this or you're just that. And I can understand that in some companies, maybe bigger companies and older companies, you have this kind of, this is your place. Don't try to get out of your place. You just stay there and that's it.
Definitely. Definitely, it's a tricky situation, and some companies have a hierarchy. Some companies expect you to follow these procedures, and trying to effectuate change in those kinds of companies takes a lot longer than companies where it's what you guys work on a smaller scale.
Do you think an open environment makes things better or makes the teamwork more effective than if you have very rigid departments and where it's hard to make maybe make that bridge, or let's say as a developer you don't really see the owner of the company or the sales company, so you can't really relate to their struggles?
I think it's important to be more transparent as what other departments are doing. Maybe you don't need to know the exact ins and outs of sales and commissions and things like that, but it'll be nice to know from at least from my perspective is if the sales team are going after an RFP, RFQ, or a particular customer, and they don't win that deal, why? Because that feedback is very important to product managers, because we can find out what was the reason for losing. Is it price? Is it that they thought the other competitors company had better features, better tech support, or whatever it may be? So we can use that as feedback to drive into our ecosystem to build the product better or
Makes
improve the
sense.
product.
Yeah, makes sense. Because what I was thinking is sometimes, yeah, it's hard to relate to someone if, like you said, when you're getting started and you had that job, and sometimes some developer would say, okay, yeah, I don't want to explain to you what I am doing, just go away.
Yeah,
But also if you had that knowledge, or if you could relate to them and see their struggles, to say, okay, so maybe if I am trying to do something, maybe I can make things a little bit easier for the next person or for the next department. And sometimes that we don't really think like that. We think, okay, I have a job to do, I'll do my job and that's it. But then as a team, if you start thinking that the other person might have problem with something, I'm not entirely sure how to describe it really, but let's say that you're working on a feature and you know that the backend team needs to do something with MongoDB or something like that, and you as a front end maybe can prepare things so that when the two bits get together, it goes a bit smoother. So you understand the pain that someone else will have to come and try to sort out that issue that you created. So then you try to smooth that out, and then as a team, things flow much better.
definitely. And I'll give an example. In one of my previous jobs, we would create a document that the way engineering worked was that this one particular engineer, he ran this particular division. So in order to get access to him or his developers, we had to put in a request, and we had to write down exactly word for word, create a document as to what we want that team to do. And their job was only to execute. So I remember a couple of projects where other teams have given a particular project to this team to do, and they've done it based on that spec. And when they've given it back to the team and said, here you go, we've built it, the team said, well, this doesn't do what we intended to do. And their response was, well, we've built it to the exact specification that you asked for in your document. So we've done our job. So I was sitting one day with a senior VP, and I said, I've heard about this. You've heard about this. Why is this still happening? Shouldn't the engineering team read through that document and talk to the users and say, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to do? And then before they start coding, start to think of any pitfalls or start to work together to build the product together. And the VP said, yeah, I get where you're coming from. That's what happens in normal companies. But this VP prefers to only execute based on the document. And it's a bit of, covering your backside kind of situation. And, that's how this manager wanted to run his team. You write everything down and we'll build it for you. And I'm like, well, your team has engineers. They can see pitfalls or of my thinking, which may be incorrect, and I may not have that skill set. Shouldn't we work together and plan something together and think about what value we're trying to do, create for the user together? And his response was, no, my job is to create and build based on what you tell me. And obviously I didn't last in that position for much longer.
That seems like a nightmare, because as a developer, you understand things a little bit different than, let's say, a salesperson. Let's say that a salesperson wants to sell a specific thing, and they might call this thing, I don't know, a broadcast module. But you as a developer, you think, okay, a broadcast module has to have all these things, and then all they wanted to say was, oh yeah, broadcast as in you put a video online. So if you want to write things down and you follow that as if as a recipe, like you said, it can just be a pain. First of all, it probably will take longer to implement because the developers are working on something, and when the thing is done, you present it to the person that requested that thing and you say, yeah, but that's not it, so now I'm going to have to do another requirement, and then I have to do another thing, and you're going to have to change the whole thing. Whilst if you told us a week or a month, depends how long you have the sprints, I guess, if you are in an agile environment, you say, okay, this is what we've done, and then someone says, yeah, but that's okay, but it's not exactly what we wanted. We wanted this, so then you can adjust and the product can grow because you have that freedom to do the things. I remember watching one video on YouTube where it was a dad was doing a peanut butter sandwich.
Okay.
With his son and his daughter, and he was doing exactly what they were saying. I say, okay, so how can I make a peanut butter? You grab the jar and you put it on the bread. Okay. So then he would grab the jar without opening and put it on top of the bread. And then they're like, no, you have to open the jar. And the dad said, well, you didn't tell me to open the jar.
Exactly.
So if you are that rigid, you can call something similar to that. Out of curiosity, and this was something that we talked on the first episode. Have you heard about domain-driven design?
Define how you're interpreting that.
Well, I can't really define it properly. So what Gemma told me was, this is how you rename things and you create your product, and you have the same language that someone that would sell the product or someone that would had the idea of creating the product. So what other departments use, you as a developer will use the same sort of language. On her example, she said broadcasting module, and you as a developer, you might not understand what's that, but then someone says, okay, what is this broadcast module? And someone says, oh, that's just the thing that you press a button and you go live and you have the video. So that was the example that she gave it. Also, she did say, look, this was a talk that I watched. I'm not an expert on that on any matter. She recommended a book. I haven't bought the book yet, but seems to make a lot of sense. So I would like to know if you heard about it or yeah.
So I don't know of the phrase that you mentioned, but what I think what you're getting at is that, let's say if you're in a healthcare environment, there'll be certain terminology that is used in the healthcare industry, and that's the same terminology that you should be using in your code, in your products, in your sales literature, constantly. So that way, PMPM, for example, means per member per month in the healthcare world. So in the code, PMPM, that's what it means. But in a different industry, it could mean something else. So I think where you're getting at is, depending on the industry that you're working in, they will have certain terminology, certain ways of talking, certain ways of doing things, and then that should be adopted into the build. And someone who works as a healthcare PM, product manager, will do similar things, but the terminology will be different to someone who works in the financial services industry. Even though from a PM perspective, it'd be very similar, but they may call it something different. And I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't off the top of my head. But I think that's where that is probably getting towards. And I haven't heard that term and I'm not familiar with it, but I'm suspecting it could be that.
I think so. I think you might be right. But again, like I said, Gemma did mention this is a whole thing where there are conferences about it, there are talks about it. There is this big community that really swears by it. And unfortunately, I haven't taken the time to really look at it properly. Just because you were talking about that, and I just remembered with the issues that you had with that team member or that VP, it kind of reminded me that maybe one of the biggest problem was communication. Because one thing is when you are speaking to someone, another thing is the written communication. And there's always a big barrier between saying something and maybe you do some gesture with your face or you smile or something and the person realizes that you meant something maybe different or you were joking. Whilst if you are writing things down and you are very annoyed and you read something that someone meant as a joke and you look at that and you're like, why the hell are you talking to that like me to me?
Definitely. I mean, whatever resources Gemma sent you, if you could share those with me, I'd be curious to see, what it's all about.
I will definitely share with you. And I also wanted to go deeper into that because it seems a very interesting thing to implement, especially when you are working as a team and that you have to work with different departments as well. So then
Definitely.
it seems that in the company everybody speaks the same language in a way. It seems
Yeah.
very interesting. Do you do a lot of agile development or not really?
Yeah, we do, but again, agile is, you have to make it work for you, right? You have waterfall and you have agile, and everyone seems to be wanting to do agile, but in reality, you do a bit of both, right?
Mm.
It's hard to define what agile really is, and it's hard for some corporation to be 100% agile or 100% waterfall. You find that middle ground that works for the company, works for all the team members.
Makes sense. I'm working on my own because I'm self-taught. So I work on my projects. I work on open source. I try to implement some sort of agile environment on my product. But when you're working on your own, it's very easy for you to just do whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just say, okay, yeah, I don't exactly feel like working on this particular thing, or I don't want to work on this particular product. So then you do something else. Do you think Do you think it's a good idea to just focus on a single thing and do it through until you can't anymore? Let's say it's blocked for some reason, you need a piece that hasn't been built something, or is it fine to go from task to task and try to do as much as you can?
I think it's dependent on you as a person.
Mhm.
So, for example, on my site, theproductangle.com, I have a bunch of different articles that I am working on. And, if one day, let's say Monday, I want to work on Article 1, and then, Monday afternoon, I'm tired of working on Article 1 and I need a break from it, I go work on Article 3. So I think it depends on you as a person. And I've spoken to people who can only write one article at a time and they want to get that article out before they even think about the second article. Now, my brain works that I like to have multiple things going on in the background. And, if my brain's tired of working on one article, I can go shift gears and work on a different article. It takes a bit of context switching. And for some reason, my brain likes that. I can't focus on one thing, for the next whole day, like for example, whole day. I like to break things up and work on different things just to get the brain, ticking over. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I do find that if you do break it up and, morning you work on one article and, second in the afternoon you work on something else, then that article may take a little bit longer to publish, or product or whatever you're building may take a little bit longer to publish because you're working on multiple things at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's also like you said, it depends a lot of the person that you
Yeah,
are, how well you work. Some folks like to just work on one thing and go from beginning to the end. Others
yeah,
like to change, switch a lot. I like
yeah.
to have different things in the oven, and I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But
Same here. I'm the same. I'm the same way. I like to have. Right now, I think I have 3-4 different articles in the background, and I'm working on them independently. It takes a little bit longer to release, but that's just the way my brain works.
I'm the same. I think I have at the moment I have three projects that I want to work on. One of them is Communities Deck, which I was meant to start last year, and then I just started working on something else and I left it completely until I got the notification that I have to pay for the domain.
And you
And I
realize,
said,
yeah,
oh, damn it, yeah, I haven't worked on it. And I went to check how many people were interested and registered for the beta.
yeah,
And I had 58 people were interested.
wow,
And I just went, what the hell? Why didn't I work on this? Come on, I have 58 people interested. It doesn't mean they will become clients, but it's 58 people.
but that's prioritized. Now we're getting into the prioritization, right? What comes first? What's more important? That's so you're getting into the realm of prioritization. So I think working on different things is okay because, like for me at least, my brain after a certain time gets tired working on it because you're looking at the same words and the same article for a period of time, and I need to context switch into something different. But I think it's important to know from a strategic perspective, what are you trying to do? You may have a 6-month roadmap. So between, say July and January now, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? So you'd have the high level goals of whatever it is you may want to do, but also each month, what are these goals and what actions you're going to take to get to those goals? So for me, I have a calendar where I have, my show every week or every 2 weeks, I have a guest on. So I know by the end of the year, I'll have X amount of different episodes that are out in the world.
It makes sense. I have still a little bit of a issue of keeping up with these plans that I make.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to have a to-do list where I do all the things, and then I have another to-do list where I put everything that I want to work on eventually. So I
Yeah.
have this ever-growing list of things that I would like to do one day, or ideas that I have for apps, for projects, for whatever really.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot of times I start planning everything, and then after 3 months, I just stop. So I'm trying again to just keep on going and force myself to actually take one day, stop, revise everything that I've been through, all the things I still need to do or I want to achieve. And I've noticed, and I've been doing that for almost, I guess, 4 months since the lockdown started in UK. I think it's
Yeah.
4 months. And I've noticed that I'm not so much working on things that might not give me enough value. So are things that I actually working towards a specific goal. For example, I had the idea of creating landing in tech
Yeah.
maybe in January, and I kept having it in the back of my head. Oh, I want to do this, but I didn't have a name, and I just kept postponing and said, tomorrow I'll do it, tomorrow I'll do it, until I sat down. I wrote down what I wanted. I started playing around with names and said, okay, I got a name. Let's see if someone has the domain. The domain was free. I said, okay, everything is aligning, so I need to do something with it.
Yeah.
And that's when I sat down and said, okay, I will start asking people if they're interested to participate. A lot of people were very happy to participate. And again, thank you for being here. And it's been a really interesting journey, I would say, because it's very interesting to know the journey of other developers and struggles, successes, and everything. It's been very, very interesting. Let me take you back to that first day when you became a product manager. What was the biggest challenge that you faced on that day? You know, the first days are always very scary, very
Yeah.
stressful. Did you become a product manager on a company that you work for, or was an entirely new role, new team, a lot of new things to learn?
Definitely. I mean, if I talk about when I started working for a separate company, you know, as a product manager, you're like, I want to do this, but you know, how does it work here? There's so many things, variables out there. So first things first, what I would do is get to know who's who, right? And I'm a big believer in getting to know who runs what's their role. Ask them what they think their role is, and then obviously you talk to people, build that relationship, and you get to know who everyone in the company is. But also at the same time, in the back of your head, you know, what am I going to do in the next 30 days, the next 60 days, the next 90 days? So you have to balance, especially if you're working for a company, you have to balance your career up and down, right? So what I mean by that is that there are people, product managers, who are way more experienced than I am, and I want to learn from them, but I'm not at that level. And then there are product managers who are maybe just starting out, where I have a few more years experience than they do, but then they need someone to help them grow as well. So from that perspective, you manage up because you want to grow in your career, but you also help someone who is just starting out also manage up and help them grow as well. So I feel like from that perspective, on day one, it's going to be overwhelming, but don't be overwhelmed. Try to make a plan and just talk to people, right? There are companies where I've spoken to people and they have all these rules and, you know, you have to go follow these procedures. And there are companies, yeah, you know, where, you know, feel free to ping me if you need something or give me a call and let's chat. So it's just making those relationships in those companies, getting to understand how that company environment works.
So you, as a very first day of a product manager, or let's say the first month as a product manager, looking back at my jobs every single time I started, it's always, well, you know, I'm the newbie here, so I can ask questions, I can do maybe silly mistakes that I will learn by with the experience, or ask someone to guide me. Do you feel that you, as a manager, you don't have that freedom in a way, because you have someone under you that says, yeah, you're a manager, you have to know all of these things even though it's your first day ever?
I don't think it's that way. I mean, I think everyone's human, and everyone doesn't expect somebody to know everything on day one. You know, and to me, it's a strength to be able to say, you know what, I don't know this right now. I can figure it out for you. And I think that is a strength in itself that many people don't want to say, and maybe they give out some BS, or say they, you know, they give out something. But if on day one, just say, like, I'm not sure right now, let me look into it and I'll get back to you. So I think that maybe there may be some unnecessary pressure built on you because it's the first day and you have to do these things, or if you have a company, I mean, a, you know, team that you're running or responsible for. But at the end of the day, it's your first day. There's only so much you can do. There's only so much, you know. But at the end, if you work together, you know, I've had managers, bosses who have been very hands-on and hands-off. But at the end of the day, the best bosses that I've worked for are the ones that want to find out what I want to do in my career, and they want to help me find and do that work so I can help myself grow in my career. So if you understand your team, what they're doing and what they want to do, that will help bring that alignment. Because if you're forcing someone to do something that they're not really into, they won't really care to do it well, and they may not be bothered to do it at all. So I think it's all about just communicating and talking to the people who, on both sides of the spectrum, and just building that relationship together.
I think this is also a very good sign of maturity, and that you are very approachable as well. If you just someone asks you something, or you are in charge of something, and you go straight away and say, well, I'm not entirely sure how to do that, or I'm not entirely sure how to answer to that question, but I will definitely look for the answer and I will come back to you later. I find sometimes you might work with someone that wants to give you an answer, but they don't really know, so they just make up. And then
Yeah.
in the long run, you find out that, oh wait, this person hasn't really told me the truth. They just didn't know, and that's it. They gave me some excuse or something. So I always say that if you come as in, all right, well, I'm also human, even though my title is manager, but
Yeah.
I'm human. I'm allowed to not know things, but this is clearly important for you. So I'm more than happy to just go and give you an answer. Just give me one day or a week or whatever, depends on the question, and that just helps. And then the team will say, "Oh yeah, he's really cool because he didn't know, but he wasn't arrogant or anything. He just said, okay, I don't know, I will just go." And that's very important with managers. I would say that you just have that contact and that approachability, so then you know that you can count on that person to, well, to anything really. Do you
Yeah.
think do you think that you start as a junior developer or just a developer, a software engineer, then with the experience, you become a senior developer or a senior engineer? Do you think the next logical step is to become a manager, a product manager, or maybe a CEO or something like that?
I'm not a big fan of logical steps at times, and my career has been very unconventional. So I don't really know what to say the logical next step would be. I would say the logical next step is what you want it to be, right? At the end of the day, if you are passionate about something and you want to do something, go make it happen. You go from junior to senior to maybe director, VP. That's the traditional route that people take, and my career hasn't taken that trajectory. I've always done things that I've enjoyed. So if you're a junior developer and you want to move into product management, there's plenty of ways to do that. And I would say, first of all, understand why you want to be a product manager, right? For me, I've had a fantastic time doing it. It's been rewarding. And if you like working in cross-functional teams, if you like getting stuff done, if you like to lead with influence, because a product manager has zero authority. So if I don't feel that anyone should be restrained to think that, okay, now I'm a junior, my next step is to be a senior, and then from senior to whatever it may be. Find what it is that you want to do. I mean, try different things, and I've tried a number of different careers as well, and you have to find what you want to do for the foreseeable future. I don't believe in for the rest of your life, but at this time, if you are interested in becoming a PM, talk to other PMs, right? And the best way to do it is, if you don't work with any PMs, you can't find any PMs that you can, with the internet nowadays, you can build stuff online, you can write about it online. And I'll be honest, I'm not the most experienced PM. I have a lot of different skills sets that I bring, but there are a lot of people out there who are more experienced than me, and I'm learning from them. So with the internet nowadays, you can reach out to anybody and just have a conversation. And a lot of people are willing to help you. So going back to your question, I think I answered in a long-winded way. I don't think of those career trajectories. I think your career is what you make it. You know, depending on what role you want to be in or what work you want to do, make it what you want.
That's a very good answer, I would say. And I think maybe it's because how we are taught in the school. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because how, I don't know, maybe our parents tell us how things work. We always think that everything is a staircase, right?
Yeah.
So you have to always start from the bottom and you can never go start from the middle. Or you can
No.
never go from you decided to become a nurse and then along the line you realize that you don't really enjoy hospitals and now you want to become I, I don't know product manager. um,
Which is good because you have that health background. So if you're a product manager in the healthcare industry, you've actually gone and done things in a hospital that maybe a product manager who works for a health insurance company doesn't really understand what it is like to be in a hospital. So I think that your skill sets, whatever you've developed, is very important. And you know, I came from a traditional Indian background where the usual expectation is that you finish school, go do your A levels, go to get a degree, and go get a good job, and then be there for the rest of your life.
this is I'm not sure if it's just Indian to be honest, because in Portugal and in Poland is exactly the same. You have
Okay.
to go to university. You
Yeah.
need to have a degree because if you
Yeah.
don't have a degree, you won't find a job. Period.
Yeah. And
But
it depends. Sorry, go ahead.
what the with all my experience, and I have a tourism degree, and I've never really done anything with a degree. Even though I am a flight attendant now, the degree didn't really open me any doors whatsoever. I
Yeah.
applied. I had that customer service and sales background, and I got the job.
Yeah.
So they didn't care if I had a degree in tourism, if I studied this many years about laws of tourism and history and all these things. I think unless you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, these professions where you actually need that PhD or that master's degree. To me, I find that the main goal of a university is for you to expand your network and for you to know the people in that field. So
Yeah.
when you are looking for a job, you already have a good network and you can maybe move around that network and you can find a job easier. But a lot of cases, let's say in a developer position, what is important is the experience that you have, is the portfolio that you have, who did who did you work with, or what did you do, or what do you know. And sometimes, especially in maybe a developer position or a CS degree, universities they can't really catch up with the changes in tech. So
Yeah.
you maybe are learning something that in reality you don't use anymore. I also I'm a maintainer for an open source project, and I had someone that said he tried to uh, raise a pull request, and he said, "Oh, I'm not entirely sure how to use Git. Can you please give me a hand?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, no worries." So we have a chat on Matrix. We used to use Gitter before, and
Yeah.
I helped him going through how to set up everything and how to raise the pull request and explain the basics of Git. And he said, "Oh, that's awesome because I did a CS degree, but this is actually the first time I try to contribute to open source, and it looks so different than what I know."
Yeah.
And then which school you go or which university you go, you have the curriculum is so different. Some schools they adapt faster than the other ones,
Yeah.
so that also matters a lot. Do you think that the degree is a good piece of paper, but might not open you that many doors, like some people might think so?
It's a very interesting topic, and I would say in the UK, degrees cost maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pounds max, right? When I did my degree, it was free. So in the US, when universities are charging 40, 50, 60,000 dollars a year, it becomes a different balance of should I go to college or not. I agree with you that if you are going to be a doctor or a lawyer, you need to go to college, because you cannot get into certain professions without having a degree. And being a doctor or a lawyer is one of those professions. If you want to be a developer, and that is what you really want to do, I think it comes down to it's an individual decision if you want to go to college or not, because you have to find a college, university that has a program that you enjoy. Just because you have a computer science degree doesn't necessarily mean that it gives you the skills that you want or need in today's environment. So I would definitely say, as a developer, have your own portfolio and have your own, what you've worked on, what projects or communities you have contributed to, and put it out there, because as a developer, your experience is going to help you. As a developer, should you go to college? I think that's an individual thing, because at the age of 18, when you're thinking of going to college, when I was 18, it was free. And in the UK, many people get degrees for a much cheaper price than in the US. Should you spend $150,000 to $200,000 getting a degree and then having to pay that back? It's a tough conversation financially. Many people don't have that money to go to college, and they have to take loans out, and that's a whole different story and ball game in the US. So I think it depends on what it is that you want to do. If you're a developer, start developing things, start building things, start contributing to things, have your own portfolio out there, and network with people. Network, with the internet, it's such a game changer. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, your personal websites. Build a network as soon as possible. And you don't have to be arrogant or pushy, but writing a DM, a cold DM or a cold email is a skill in itself. And I'm not saying if someone doesn't reply back, you keep spamming them, but find out what that person is about and what value you can give and what you're asking for. I've gotten people on my show through Twitter, where I've just reached out, started a conversation, and next thing I know, I've invited them on my show. And that's exactly how we met too, Fabio. We met on Get Maker Log, and we interacted for a little bit. And when I was in the UK, I said, hey, do you want to grab a coffee? And I think we met at 10, and I was starting work at 2, and all of a sudden we were just chatting for hours, and I'm like, damn, it's nearly 2 o'clock. I got to get back to work, right? So I think, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important that, build your network and build your online presence. The earlier, the better, because that can help you open doors. And I'm not saying don't go to university. It's a decision that you have to make, because I went to university. I did electrical engineering with computer science, but as a minor, if you will. And do I regret doing it? No. But in the UK, like I said, education is much, much, much cheaper. It was free. In the US, I did an MBA, which cost me $120,000, and I'm paying it monthly right now. Do I need to go for that MBA? Did I need to? I mean, it's a balance. I've done it. I spent $120,000. I'm paying for it right now, right? So it depends on what your goal as a developer is. And I haven't been a developer for many years, so I can't really speak about the career progression, to how that works. But again, it depends. Do you want to work as a developer for a large company? Do you want to be your own developer? There's a lot of questions that you should be asking yourself. It's not as simple as, should you go or should you not go? It depends on what your overall goal or aim is in life. And if you feel you want to go to college, have some fun, meet people, and figure out if you really want to do something, that's okay too. So it's a hard question for me to answer, to be honest, Fabio.
Yeah, I think, like you said, each person will have a different answer for this, and I enjoy studying, and I think not only the fact of solving a tough problem that made me fall in love for code, but also having to be always update and read things and learn things. I just love to learn things. And 4 years ago, I was looking into changing my career,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, I will try to go back to university because I really enjoyed university.
Yeah.
So I was looking for courses in UK, and the cheapest one was, I believe it was 15,000 for 3 years. And I
Okay.
said, well, 15,000, that's already half of the money that I need to put for a deposit for a house.
Yeah.
And for a developer position, I always said, if you have a good portfolio, you probably will get that position. And you hear so many people that they started as self-taught, and sure, maybe the job searching is harder, but it's not impossible. Actually, today I saw this Twitter thread that people were saying, "What do you think if you should have a CS degree, if it helps or not?" And I would say the overall consensus was, sure, if you have a degree, a CS degree, it helps through that screening process.
Okay.
So the HR looks at your portfolio, your curriculum, and it says a CS degree may have a university, and they ask you, okay, yeah, we're interested because you have the degree, so you probably know your thing, and then you are getting through the door a bit quicker than if you don't have a degree.
Yeah.
But then if you have an amazing portfolio, you probably don't need that degree. It just depends which company you're applying for. I don't have an amazing portfolio, and like I said, I have so many things in the oven at the moment where I still haven't created a good enough portfolio, in my opinion, to say, hey, I've done all of this, just give me a job. And I started looking for jobs, applying for jobs, and it's been okay so far. I wouldn't say it's been tough, but I've started, I think, 2 weeks now. Obviously, I got some rejections, some of them and I expected already. One I didn't really expect, but it was for a remote position, and in my opinion, I think a remote position is probably harder to get started if you don't have a background. But like you said, one of the most important things, and we mentioned that, or Eva mentioned that on the previous episode, is your network is probably one of the biggest assets that you can have. So it's the people that you know that might say, oh, okay, yeah, I know this person, he's pretty cool or she's pretty cool, and they can do this or that, and I've worked with them, and maybe just talk to them and see what you think. And maybe you start replying very enthusiastic, or you just click with the next person that, or with the person that's talking to you, and without you even noticing, I say, okay, well, come for an interview and let's just have a chat and see if you know your things or not. So sorry, go
Right.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, when someone knows you, there's the interview is just a formality. They know you if they want to hire you or not, even before the interview, right? And the interview is just a formal process that they have to go through because the company makes them.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, so let's say when you got that first job as a product manager, or that first position, you didn't have any previous experience as a product manager, right?
So I did it for myself
Mhm.
when it wasn't really called product manager. So I had the experience myself, not at a company though. Correct.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you find it harder to work for a company that was asking for that role because you didn't have that experience, or how was that job searching moment?
So for me, it was in healthcare, and healthcare product managers are somewhat behind the industry of product managers, because healthcare is one of those industries where in general things move slowly because it's so regulated.
Mhm.
So in as a product manager, because the industry is so regulated, the tech they are allowed to use and what they can't use because of regulations is limited in itself. So for me, I didn't feel overwhelmed. It was just a case of, again, just talking to people, seeing what their roles are, what they do, and just building a rapport with them. Because working in the healthcare industry is different to working in the tech industry, where they can make quick changes on the fly, and every 2 days or 3 days you can implement changes and things are a little bit more faster. Whereas in the tech industry, it is a little bit more slower, and you have to go through various departments. Legal's involved many times, right? You have a compliance officer that you may need to go to. So because you have to go through these different barriers, for a lack of a better word, healthcare industry, I felt that I knew from my experience the skills that I needed, but now I just have to adapt them to the healthcare industry.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you were very smart at maybe aiming at that particular industry first because you saw that doesn't doesn't grow, or it doesn't, the pace is not as fast as other industries, so then
Yeah.
you might have a better chance at getting that position. Do you have any particular industry that you prefer working on, or it's unrelated, it just depends of the product that you are managing?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the product. I think, you know, if you understand the industry, if you understand the users, you understand your competition, then the principles are somewhat similar, that they can be adapted. And I'm not saying it's easy to do. It does take a lot of work, a lot of reading, and a lot of understanding, but I'm saying it's not impossible.
Hmm. Makes sense. So let's say, as a junior developer, how can I be a great team member, and how can I help you as a product manager?
Learn to communicate, right? As a developer, you have this amazing skill set to build things, but learn to communicate with the product manager. If you are, seeing any red flags, I'm the kind of person that you can come approach me and say, hey, I like what you're thinking here, but have we considered A, B, and C? The answer may be yes, and we're okay taking that risk. Or the answer may be, oh, you know what? I didn't think of that, but that's a very good point. And then you start adding value for that team, because you're not somebody who just takes instructions and then does their job and gives it back. You're actively, communicating with a team, and you're actively brainstorming, you're actively being a part of the end product. So for me, I think as a junior developer, you know, the technical skills are very, very important. Don't get me wrong. But I think at some point, junior developers need to start thinking about the soft skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to collaborate, and the ability to negotiate. Because I think those three skills are very important. You have to talk to other people, you have to work with other people. And then in terms of negotiations, in a business, there may be timelines, there may be deadlines, there may be, we need this, but it's dependent codependencies on something else. So I think as a junior developer, many developers, and I'm not saying everybody, but many developers focus on improving their technical skills. And I think as a developer, yes, technical skills are important, but as you move up to become a senior developer, or whatever path that you choose, the soft skills are just, if not more important.
I have to say, I love that you just said that, because last Sunday, when I had the talk with Eva, she said exactly the same thing. That, okay, yeah, you know how to code a lot, you are amazing at coding, but don't know how to communicate with the team. You
Yeah.
probably will add more valuable to the team if you know how to communicate more effective than coding very well. And like you said, obviously, if you are being paid to do a particular job and you don't know the technical skills to do that job, you won't go that far either. So you need to find a balance.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that idea that it's not just code. And thinking back in my case, where I'm self-taught and I only have to deal with myself, it's a bit daunting to think, okay, there is so much that I still don't know. There is so
Yeah.
much that I still want to learn. And sometimes I don't have that division between saying, okay, I can only do front end or I just going to improve front end, because the way how I approach the developer world is I want to learn a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, I might not, let's say, get a job as a cybersecurity expert, but I love knowing stuff about cybersecurity as well.
Yeah.
And I think knowing little bits of everything, you can put it and mash it all together and make an amazing cake that you can use it on your day-to-day job. And all these little things that you learn just give you more value. And then speaking, communication, it's all very, very important. And yeah, I I work every single day with different team members. Every single day I have different customers as well. And looking back at when I started, so my very first day as a salesman, I was terrified. I couldn't understand the people that well, and I used to say something and people would push back, others wouldn't. And I just went, okay, so why did it work with that person but not with this person? And then with that experience, you start seeing all the signs and you start building a picture without things happening yet. So it's like, okay, yeah, with this person, this will work, but that person won't work. And I
Yeah.
do that with my customers on board as well. I know exactly who you can sort of play as well and who you need to be more professional. And it's very interesting. And I think for other developers, or in this case for junior developers, if you think that you don't have amazing communication skills, just start talking to people, like you said. Writing might be hard, or maybe not. Maybe speaking face to face with someone
Practice. Yeah.
might
Practice
be
it.
harder. But it's just starting, and you start with time. You start seeing a pattern, and you start understanding how other people react and how you can communicate better.
Definitely. And just to add, if a junior developer knows that they want to be a specialist in whatever language or whatever platform or whatever it may be, that's fine too. You could be known as a specialist for whatever, plus having these soft skills will only enhance your career. Because at a certain level, if you can, when you're brainstorming with the team, if you can say, have you thought about this, or have you considered this? To me, that is so much more valuable than someone who just agrees with everything. And I completely get in a team environment, in a group environment, that they may not feel comfortable voicing their concerns or their opinions or whatever. I completely get that. And that's why I also believe in one-on-ones. If you're as a junior developer, if you're in a big meeting and you see something that, might be an issue down the road, or you want to say, have you considered this? And you don't feel comfortable saying it in a room full of people, that's okay. But then try to build that relationship with the manager or whoever, where you can have those one-on-one conversations. And that's where I think from a good manager perspective, they should be open to having those one-on-one conversations, because they know that maybe that person isn't comfortable, talking out in a large setting.
That makes sense. And going back to the communication skills, you organize a meetup, the Product Angle meetup as well, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if you don't have that communication skills, going to meetups and even trying to create your own meetup can be an excellent way not only to build your network, but also practice your communication skills.
Absolutely.
Let's say if even if you just want to practice your networking skills, you don't even have to go to a tech meetup where you might not want to say something wrong to someone. You just want to practice, and it's sort of going to a cocktail party where you are invited. It's just a bit more relaxed, less formal, so you can just talk to people, meet people. How was it organizing your meetup? Was that your first meetup that you've organized? Have you organized other meetups before?
So back in the day, even with my employer in the UK, because I was on this apprenticeship, they sent us to different events where we would talk about our experience to hire new apprentices. So from the beginning, I was trained to go out and talk to people, and I went on courses on public speaking. And I feel very fortunate that I got this opportunity when I was 16. So they really helped develop not only the technical skills but also the soft skills. And I remember sitting in workshops on public speaking. So I've been doing something, with people, meetups and things like that, right from the age of 17. In the beginning, I admit I was very scared. The first event I did, it was like a employment workshop where all these students, from secondary school were looking into what career they want to do. So it was a big hall, all these different companies, and students and their parents would come by, and we would tell them that, hey, I'm an apprentice with this company, and I left school at 16. I'm currently going to school with the company, and you basically talk about your experiences. And in the beginning, I was super scared, because the parents are watching, the kids are there, and it was just nervous. And over time, I still get nervous at times, but over time you realize that it's people, and it's your story, and there'll be people that like it, there'll be people that won't like it, and it's just you just got to do what you got to do, and over time you become more and more confident. Like right now, there are times, like I said, when I feel nervous about talking. Sometimes there are times when I think, you know, what am I doing? And at the end of the day, I think, okay, I'm trying to add this value for this subset of people. If I can connect with somebody, hopefully that they will get some value out of it. So I've been running a couple of workshops for a college recently. And at the end, I would get a couple of students reach out and say, hey, can I talk to you about this? Can I talk to you about this? So I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, I tell them I don't know everything, but I can tell you what my experiences are, what I think, and it's your decision to take that information in how you want. I'm not an expert in many things, but I have some experience and I can talk about some things. And as you practice it, you get better and better and better. And if you look at my earlier podcasts and my earlier meetup shows, I'm nervous, and I still am to an extent. But as you keep doing it, you'll get better and better.
It gets easier. I
Yeah.
think it's all about the experience, like you say. Let's not forget that the number one, how do you say, the most scary thing that you can do is public speaking.
Yeah.
That is where most people would rather die than to face 300 people and speak about stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember the first month when I started streaming, I was working on the Thumbs Up News. So it's a project where I trained a classifier to classify news headlines and get positive news on the website.
Yes. The one you launched on the Product Angle show.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I remember the first month, every single time I was going live, that first half an hour, I was so terrified. I'm like, oh man, I'm not sure. I was sweaty and everything, which is very weird because every single day I have at least 300 people that I am faced, and
Yeah.
I can be at the front of the plane grab the interphone and just talk to the customers, and it's fine. But streaming was very stressful,
Yeah.
and now I can just press start broadcasting or start streaming, and it's fine, and I just do my thing. I always like to start my streams by just talking about something, what I'm going to do today,
That's it.
and stuff, and it's just that experience. I remember the first time when I became a flight attendant, we we always say, or the more experienced flight attendants, they always say, okay, if you are new, you don't have to go to the front of the plane and make the PA, so you can just stay at the back. No one is
Yeah.
going to see you,
Yep.
and you can do your PA, and you still feel very, very scared and nervous that you are saying things, and you can hear yourself, and it's very stressful. And then after the first month, you're just like, yeah, it's fine. I'll go to the front. It's fine. And with streaming, exactly the same thing. I'm
Yep.
trying to start recording things, and again, I feel very stressful, and I just can't get my words out because I get very stressful because I'm recording, and it's
Yeah.
just silly because recording and streaming are pretty much the same thing. So it makes no sense because I can just code and talk through what I'm doing. But then if I'm thinking that I am recording, I just get stressed. And it's just because I don't have that experience. So I guess, yeah, with meetups, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen, right? Someone's going to say that this was not a good show or this was not a good episode or whatever, right? Or if you're talking to somebody, what's the worst that can happen? And I get that in reality, there are people that put harsh, very crappy comments on videos. And in reality, in a physical world, if you talk to somebody, they can push back and bite your head off. And I get that can be a little scary, but at the end of the day, it's their problem. If someone types in a negative comment online, it's because something in their life is negative. Or if you approach somebody in a physical world and at an office, maybe, for example, when we can, and they say something negative back to you because you walked over to their desk and you said something, it's their problem, right? At the end of the day, as long as you have good intent and you're being courteous, right? If someone says no, rejection can be hard, but that's something that you have to develop and call it a thick skin, if you will.
I agree with that. And like you said, problem, I would say maybe 99% of the times, the problem is not you, the problem is the other person. So maybe they are going through some problems in their lives. Maybe they just are a little bit envious of what you are doing and they are not. Or I don't know. There's so many reasons why someone would say something extremely negative, as in a toxic way.
Yeah.
Whilst maybe if you talk with that person in real life, they would say, "Oh no, I didn't mean it like that." So sometimes it's just like venting the frustration.
Yeah.
And I also, one thing that I've learned from day one that I started as a salesman was, if you approach everything by being humble and by saying, okay, I might screw up, and if you know that you're screwing up, you just say, I'm really sorry, this is not going well.
No.
Do you want me to keep on going? Do you want me to stop? I will try to get better. And a lot of times, I would say maybe, yeah, most of the times that I've said that, the other person or the other group, they understood and said, okay, no, it's fine. It's not going as bad as you think anyway, because in your head, you're always very negative towards yourself.
Yeah.
So you always think it's going worse than what actually you are doing, because we are the worst people to judge ourselves. We always see us by very negative and very, no, you need to do better. And the other people are doing much more interesting things, or they are better speakers, or and it's fine. Be humble and say,
Everyone starts at zero.
yeah, and
right?
everybody
Everyone starts
mess
at
up,
zero.
and everybody mess up eventually.
Yeah.
It happens.
You got it's I think it's a journey where you learn, and I don't know if failing is the right word, but it's a journey where you learn something. Maybe something doesn't go according to what you want it to be, but you've learned it so you can improve. And the best way I think that you could say this is people who make videos, streaming, or whatever, the first few are going to be not that great. But as you start progressing, things get better because you're improving over time and everyone starts at zero.
Yep. And it's okay to fail. The important thing, and I always say that to people when they approach me, even when I'm on the plan and say, "Oh, I could never do that
Yeah.
because I could never face customers, or I could never deal with a complaint, or I could never deal with a disruptive event." They say, "You know what? You have to go through that. It's fine. You you just have to build that resilience."
Yeah.
And when you are a developer, when you are trying to create a product, when you are trying to start a company, when you're just creating things, things will suck. It's
Yeah.
plain and simple. And
Yeah.
maybe you have 10 products and maybe none of them will be good or none of them will be successful. But the thing is, and you hear that from other entrepreneurs, is all you have to do is keep trying. Is
Yeah. I mean,
your resilience of bouncing back that you can improve and you can get better, and eventually you will fail so much that you will learn so much again that okay, yeah, maybe this product is not going the way I want, so I'm going to change already because you already had these 10, 100 failures that you've done in the past.
definitely. I mean, if the best example is, if you not the best, but one of the examples are, if you look at Twitter when it first started, look at the homepage back then and look at the homepage now, right? You don't need to have the best product out there because it took Twitter 20 years to get close to. So they came out 2006, I think, 2005. So let's say at least 10, 15 years to get where they are today, right? And that's learning over time. So if they thought that, hey, our web page looks really crappy in 2006 or whatever, whenever they came out, would they have come out? No, because if the founders were too busy trying to make it perfect, they may not have released for a very long time. So I think that you should release something out there, get feedback, and constantly improve it because that's the best way to make something that people want and need.
Yeah, I agree that 100%. I remember I mentioned that to one of my viewers on the stream. They were they were saying, "Oh, I need to try to make everything perfect and everything good." I said, "Well, just release it, have a sort of an MVP, so something that you can actually show, and then see how well things go, and then
Yeah.
you, with the feedback from people using your product, you know exactly what you need to improve and know exactly where which direction you want to take or which direction you will take your product."
Yeah, definitely.
Let's
I,
sorry, go on.
no, I mean, I think we're all guilty of it at times because you want to put something out in the world that is good, but at the same time, at least for me, you feel, will you get judged? Will you people think less of you because you've put something that isn't quality? And at the end of the day, you can't get better unless you start putting things out there. And when I first started the podcast, it was in 2018. I recorded 18 episodes, and I was too focused on creating an intro, having intro music, having maybe an outro music, and I was just too focused on making it perfect that I didn't release any of those episodes. And I said, you know what? Let me just stream it and see where it goes. And that's what I've been doing.
How is that going, by the way? Is it going very well?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I mean, it's there's some episodes we get good attendance, some episodes you don't. It's something that new I've started, so I enjoy it.
I think even with the streaming, it's exactly that. Sometimes I'm working on something that not particularly interesting, and I
Yeah.
have lots of people coming in. Other times I'm working something really interesting and there's no one coming in.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you are doing something online where you have so many things happening and so many choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might not have someone now, but you'll have in the future. So it's never something that you have lost.
No, I've through that I've gotten to speak to many amazing product managers, engineers. I've building up network. So for me, it's been one of the best experiences. And how are you finding it? You've recently started this landing in tech. How are you? How has your experience been so far?
So far, it's been very, very good. I've been enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that it would take me so long to edit an episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
And last episode, I had an issue with my audio. I still don't know what happened, but my Blue Yeti was on, but it wasn't going to OBS.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of issues. So then I had to start using the camera, and the audio wasn't great. But the main reason why I wanted to start landing in tech, it's because I really enjoy learning about other people and learning how they got started and learning through their experiences. And I always think, or I always put myself in their shoes, and
Yeah.
I always go through what they've been through, and I say, man, that's such a good thing. And I can imagine you, let's say, stuck in a little basement coding something and doing something and struggling. And I look back at myself and say, yeah, I've been through the same sort of thing. I've been through the
Yeah.
same struggles, the same problems. And when you start talking with other people, you start realizing that we are just people. Everybody struggles
Yeah.
through the same things. Everybody has
That's it.
similar problems or the similar fears, and it's okay.
Yeah.
The thing is, with the landing in tech, I've I've also really enjoyed the podcasting because I created this impossible list. So it's a sort of to-do list. Well, all the things I want to do when when I become old. So all the things I want to do.
Your bucket
And
list.
so it's yes, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
have a podcast, have a book, learn lockpicking because it seems cool.
Yeah.
Go on a
Yes.
balloon rides,
Yes.
skydiving, all these
Yeah.
kind of things. And weirdly enough, I didn't really think about turning it into a podcast. I
Okay.
just thought, oh, I would like to have some guest on my stream. It should be, I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
And then that kind of evolved into becoming a podcast and say, well, I have the audio, so I can just, and I'm paying for the Creative Cloud,
Yeah.
Adobe Creative Cloud, so might as well just spend time
Why
on
not?
it and
Yeah.
turn it into the podcast. And it's been really, really fun. I've been getting some good feedback with the episodes that I've been recording. This is
Yeah.
also the third episode, but I didn't expect it would take this long to edit a podcast. Even yesterday, I was finishing off the transcript. So I'm using Otter.ai,
Okay.
and you can just add a audio file, and through AI, it gets you all the text, and it's amazing.
Okay.
And then you can start. You can press play, and it goes through all the words in your text, and you can change them and adapt it.
That's pretty good.
So working on Eva's transcript, it took me 3 hours and a half. So the episode is 1 hour and 10 minutes, and it took me 3 hours and a half to just to check through all of that.
I can believe that. I can believe that. It takes a long time.
Definitely. Let's say, imagine that you are looking at a 16-year-old Pradip,
Yes.
What kind of piece of advice would you give him?
To build an online presence earlier, because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't build my online presence until I didn't even, I mean, I had LinkedIn, but other than that, I was relatively unknown online until 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So no portfolio, I had a bunch of notes and, I didn't really have an online presence until 2018. So work in public, have an online presence, build your network online. Because, for me, I've been a little bit more old fashioned in that sense where, growing businesses and shaking people's hands and, doing that kind of stuff. Whereas online, you can meet so many people that are not in your local area, right? When you go out and meet people, you're limited to your local area. Online, I've met people from all over the world, and it's something that I wished I started earlier.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Just to finish it off, and I just wanted to go back because I wanted to ask you that before and I forgot. When you said you should build things in the public and you shouldn't be afraid of releasing something that might not be perfect.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the digital garden?
I've heard about it, but I don't really know exactly how it works and what it is.
So digital garden is where it's not a blog, but it's a work in progress blog.
Okay.
So you, let's say you have an idea to create an article about something, and you fire your text editor and you write a very rough draft about that thing,
Okay.
and you
Of the
publish.
article?
Yeah, and then you just
Okay.
publish straight away,
Okay.
and then you just say, some people they put a little tree or a little sapling, and then others they say it's a work in progress, something like that, and then you keep building up and you build that article live. So you just
Okay.
keep going, and the reason why people do that, and I can see the value of it, is it takes the pressure of trying to publish something that's good.
Mhm.
So you have a rough draft and say, okay, this is just a rough draft. I will work on it later, and you just published, and people can
Yeah.
read it, and you can get some feedback straight away. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, you have three in the oven, so you can do publish one, two, three, and then you start working on one, and then it's perfect, and you say, okay, that one is finished, and you add it, and maybe then it depends of person, but some people they have finished article bits. Others they just have, like I said, the tree that's a full grown tree, which is very cool. And it's similar to just building a product openly.
Yeah.
So you're just pushing out content as much as you can, even if it's not perfect. It helps because you're not trying to release something that's okay. You say, okay, it might be bad, but it's fine. I will work on it later.
I have to check it out. I'm not sure. I've heard of it, but I didn't realize it was a website. So I'll definitely check that out. But I would add to that is that I don't have anything against these types of services, but I also think that you should have your own SEO. So you have your own domain, and you're driving traffic to your own SEO, because like with some companies out there where you can write blogs on their website, but then if they decide to change the rules or if they decide to charge and what have you, you may not necessarily own that SEO, and that years of you building something can change overnight because the company decided they want to start charging, or they want to change strategy or whatever. So I'm a strong believer in having your own domain, so you have your own SEO. That's how I think, but I know other people have done very well on other platforms.
I agree with you 100%. I didn't explain it properly. So the digital garden, you do it on your own blog or on your own
Okay.
uh, website. I
Okay.
don't think there is any websites that offer that yet,
Okay.
but I agree with you. You should own your own content, and you should definitely publish on your own website first, and
Yeah.
then you can cross post to other places.
Yeah.
But it's
Definitely.
fine.
Own that relationship with your own audience.
Yeah.
Email, And nowadays you can get phone numbers and you can get texts messages. So email, text messages, owning that relationship with the audience, I think, is more important than that's how I feel. But it's harder to build it because the distribution comes with other platforms where you may not have your own SEO.
Pradip, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time of your Sunday to speak with me and
Thank
to
you.
share your journey and your knowledge and everything about product management. I definitely took a lot from this talk, and I've
Thank you.
understood a little bit more as well what is the role of a product manager. And like I said, I didn't think that I could just become one. So hopefully, if someone is listening, they might say, "Oh, cool. I might not want to go through all this thing. Maybe I can bring some other assets to a company, so maybe I can start doing what you've done. You started working as a product manager straight away, and it was fine."
Yeah, that man. I like I said, build your own path.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good Sunday.
Thank you. You too.